Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us here this morning in the Netherlands at the online pre-event of the Crop IB China 2022. I am your host of the day. My name is Judith van de Bovenkamp. I work for the East Netherlands Development Agency, OostNL. 欢迎所有在中国的朋友们，下午好！很高兴你们今天能参加我们的这个 Crop IB 中国线上语言活动。I'll go back to English now for effectiveness. We're very honored to have with us here in the studio today Su Guangming, Counselor for Science and Technology at the Chinese Embassy in The Hague. He will be giving us the opening remarks. So, Mr. Su, the floor is yours.
各位朋友，大家好。
Dear friends, hello.
尊敬的荷兰农业部
Distinguished
和生物机构高级政策官员，荷兰
participant and dear friends and dear Mr. Marina Fessner, CPFIO chairman,
阿贾博士
and dear Dr. Arjam,
Mr. Marina,
the CEO from KG,
CPVO chairman, Mr.
chairman from KG.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a very good morning to all of you. I'm Guangming Su, the Science and Technology Counselor of China Embassy in the Netherlands. On behalf of the Embassy, I would like to extend my warm congratulations to this forum, and I wish to express my sincere greeting to entrepreneurs and scientists in the agriculture and food industry attending this meeting. And also, I would like to thank the Crop IB for hosting this forum. And today is a very special day. We all know that since the establishment of Crop IB in 2009, scientists and entrepreneurs from all over the world have gathered together to discuss the ways and the futures of food and agriculture development. And today we organize the Crop IB in China pre-event, marking the Chinese participation. Food security and safety, beautiful countryside are important issues around the world. They are also the major goals of the United Nations of International Food and Agriculture Organization. It is also the mission of the Chinese government, sustainably supported and promoted. By 2050, the global population will be close to 10 million. With population growth, climate change, and the reduction of arable land, it's becoming more and more challenging to provide enough food for people all over the world. The effective solutions are needed. The commercial cooperation will be one of the most effective solutions. So providing health, nutritious, sustainable, environment-friendly, and affordable food is becoming a real challenge for agri-food industry. This is a race against time. As the UN Food Director General, Mr. Qu Dongyi, emphasized at the South APEC Minister Conference on Food Security in 2020. Efficiency, using fewer resources, less carbon emission, and produce more innovation in the West is often the only way forward. So I prefer add one more, a Dutch word that I just learned, summer walking.
Samenwerking, yeah.
Yeah, summer walking. I think these words represent 5 minutes. First is creating a win-win network community. The second, innovation of power for agri-technology advancement. Third, increase scale and dynamic. And fourth, co-create site-specific innovation. 示范点，Best wishes. Last is best practice in knowledge sharing and productive improvement. And China views the Netherlands as the gateway for Sino Europe operation. With joint efforts, our economic ties have become closely. In 2020, our bilateral trade grew by 7.8%. In the first half of the year, it increased further by more than 30%. Also last year, China became the largest trade partner outside the EU for the Netherlands. Among EU countries, the Netherlands is the largest destination of Chinese investment and the second largest source of investment to China. This outstanding performance of our economic cooperation against all odds of pandemic is a testament of resilience, potential, and entrepreneurship of our business. The cooperation between the Keyin and the Yazhou Bay Science and Technology City in Hainan is a good example for beginning of such kind of cooperation. I believe the Sino-Dutch cooperation will bring tangible and intangible benefits to the people of the two countries. And there is still great potential for cooperation. Next year, China and the Netherlands will celebrate the 15th anniversary of the establishment of ambassadorial diplomatic relationship. We have confidence in continuous development of Sino-Dutch relations and the benefit of two countries and people. The Chinese embassy in the Netherlands is a window to deep mutual understanding, a platform for promoting mutual beneficial cooperation, and a bridge to connect the friendship. We will continue to provide timely and efficient service to everyone. I also take this opportunity to sincerely invite you to participate in the first Crop Innovation Business China in September 2022 in Sanya, Hainan. There's no doubt this will be an important summit. 再次感谢 Corp IB 组委会的综合同事。
Very much again, the colleague from both sides and also the participants and audience from all the world. 我最后祝本次论坛取得圆满成功，并祝各位朋友光临愉快。
Thank you very much for those opening remarks, Councillor Su. We can then move on to the next presentation, Mr. Arjen van Thunen, CEO of Keyin, who will be introducing the ecosystem for innovation in the seed industry in the Netherlands. Thank you, Arjen.
Thank you very much, Judith. Well, it's a great honor for me to give this presentation. I very much like it also. And the title of my presentation is The Netherlands Ecosystem for Innovation in the Seed Industry. And in my first slide, you will see how I have structured my presentation. I will start with an introduction of the Netherlands agro-food system. Then I will tell you a little bit and introduce a little bit about Food Valley Netherlands and Keyin. And I will give you a couple of examples, a kind of a flavor for Keyin success stories. And my last few slides will be about the concrete goals of the Dutch-China collaboration in agro-food. So the Netherlands agro-food system, one of its characteristics is that it consists of very strong public-private partnerships. And within those public-private partnerships in the agro-food area, it's Seed Valley, located with its headquarters in Enkhuizen, in the north part of the Netherlands, with many seed companies. It also consists of Dutch universities, including Wageningen University and Research. And it also consists of Food Valley and all of its partners. And Kijin, the company that I'm heading, is also part of it. And our partners are also part of that Dutch ecosystem in agro-food. So just a few slides, because one of the other speakers will also introduce Food Valley in more depth. A few slides on Food Valley and the place of Kijin within that ecosystem. Food Valley and its partners. Food Valley is an international and also independent platform. And it is a platform for groundbreaking innovations that enable the transition to a sustainable food system. And the mission of Food Valley is that we shape the future of food together. And the word together is very important, of course. And the vision is that in 2050, that should be the year in which our food system offers food security to 10 billion people worldwide. And also, like Councillor Su already mentioned in his opening speech, affordable, tasty, healthy and sustainably produced food is, of course, central for that mission. Food Valley has a very specific approach. We first look at the impact of the food system on society and the needs of the society for sustainable foods. And we have defined an ambitious ecosystems with three main topics. First topic is the protein transition from animal proteins to plant proteins. Second part of it is circular agro-food. And the third topic is food and health. And to work on those topics, we have defined a number of interventions. So interventions means actions to accomplish our goals. And I can proudly say that Kijin is we are part of this very important network. And you see here in the middle, you see all the companies involved in Food Valley. And Kijin is a small player, also part of that very large network. Besides the companies, the network also consists of investors and banks. And it also consists of knowledge suppliers like academics, universities, and technical universities. Then a little bit about Kijin. Kijin is an agro-food research company. We are dedicated and also innovation-driven, internationally operating with 150 scientists and technicians active on 3 continents. Headquarters here in the Netherlands. We are broadcasting now from the Netherlands. And a subsidiary in the United States near Washington, and a representation office in Hyderabad. We have 4 strategic shareholders, vegetable breeding companies, and our employees consist of molecular geneticists, plant breeders, data scientists, bioinformaticians, phytopathologists, patent and legal specialists, and commercial and business personnel. And a number of them are here in the audience also watching these presentations of this morning. The key way we are innovating is that in the center part, you will see that center circle, we are developing technologies, validating technologies and implementing technologies for crop improvement in partnerships. And those partnerships, they require new innovations. And innovations make new crop innovations possible. And that circle always goes round and round and again and again. We are not doing that alone. We are also doing that with partners, the agro-food industry, and we are innovating based on societal challenges. And all of this, with our partners, results in improved crops. And that is what we call the Kijnovation ecosystem for impact. We position ourselves between academia and the breeding industry. So Keygene is not an academic institution. We are an R&D company. We are not a seed company. We don't breed seeds. We don't produce seeds. We do that together with partners. And we develop breakthrough breeding technologies and trait technologies and adapt them and implement them for crop improvements at our partners. So we have very strong partners, seed companies, breeding industries on the right circle. Companies like Syngenta, Mahindra, India companies, European companies, American companies. We're also collaborating with a lot of universities and institutes on the left part, including, of course, Wageningen University, but also Technical University Delft, and also a couple of universities in New Zealand, United States, Belgium, Italy. And we're also doing a lot of work together with industrial knowledge providers on the top circle, like, for instance, Nanopore, bio-research technologies, and other industries, food companies like Coca-Cola or Pure Circle, India companies, etc. We are working on a number of crops, of course, vegetables, so fruits and vegetables. On the middle circle, we are working on weeds and microorganisms, ingredient crops like stevia for sweeteners, cannabis, medicinal cannabis for health purposes. We are developing new crops. We will present one example later on in this conference on dandelion for rubber production. We're also working on ornamentals and fruit crops. Very important, of course, here in Europe, in the Netherlands, important exporter of ornamental crops. And finally, last but not least, we're also doing a lot of work on the field and commodity crops. Crops like rice, sunflower, but also crops like wheat and canola and maize. Our innovation focus is on three parts. First of all, genomics technologies. Everything about the DNA of our crops we want to know, and we have technologies to get that knowledge and to also store all this information. And it's a huge amount of information, so it requires data sciences, including artificial intelligence, to store all this information and to analyze and use all this information. We also have an important topic on metabolomics and proteomics. And the second big theme is the creation of new genetic variation. First of all, via genome editing, a well-known, very powerful technology, of course, in crop sciences, but also traditional mutagenesis supported by DNA technologies, which is a clear non-genetic modification approach. Finally, the third part of the creation of new genetic variation is our cell and tissue technologies. And I can promise you, we have some interesting new developments in those areas as well. Third big topic is trait technologies, where we are working on genomic breeding tools, which support the breeder in handling all the information and making the information accessible for breeding programs, very practical breeding programs. Finally, we are working on trait expertise to introduce biotic stress resistances. So resistances against viruses, fungi, etc., insects. And I said it earlier, we are not doing that alone. We are doing that together with partners. And I have selected a couple of Keygene successes, a few out of the many. I think there are literally hundreds of traits improved by Keygene and our partners, which are commercially on the market now. And just to give you a little bit of flavor, I've selected a few of them. This is the first one. Gemini viruses are a very big problem worldwide because in the subtropical and tropical areas, it is a devastating viral disease, for instance, in sweet pepper. And you see a virus-affected plant, sweet pepper plant on the left part. And we have, with only one mutation in one letter, we have developed a new variety, new sweet pepper variety via a non-genetic modification approach, which is now on the right side and which is an almost complete resistance against this devastating virus. And the impact, of course, that it is giving a worldwide solution to whitefly-transmitted Gemini virus diseases in sweet pepper. And we have done that together with 4 partners, which are depicted on the left lower side. Another example of better traits is improved rice. We are doing that together with an India company and the University of Milano. And you see that in the right part of the left picture, you see the Volano risotto rice plants which have hanging ears. And with, again, one mutation following the key point breeding technology in rice, with a single base pair mutation, we have obtained a new variety, a mutant, which is in the center part of the left picture, and which is also on the right part of it, and that has erected panicles and also provides higher yield. And this has a big impact, of course, because rice is a main staple food for all people around the world, including Europe, where we have big risotto rice production in Italy, in the Po Delta, and also in Spain and Greece. Another example is that we are also working on new and improved crops. And our DNA technologies, genomics and phenomics, they enable the development and also domestication of novel crops. So we are working on to improve crops, and we have numerous examples in vegetables, field and plantation crops, but we're also working on new crops. For instance, stevia, improving stevia with Pure Circle for natural sweeteners, or developing cannabis for better cannabinoids with an American company. We are also working on the development of new protein crops to meet the protein transition. So we are working on lupin, yellow pea, and fava bean as a new source for plant proteins. There is an important and potentially devastating disease, fungal disease, developing in banana, Fusarium tropical number 4. So we have embarked a number of years ago, together with Wageningen University, a banana producing company and another company, to develop better bananas, to start breeding bananas. And I don't know if you have seen the television program on Dutch television yesterday. There it was shown that this new disease is potentially devastating, and we need biodiversity in banana. And that's what we are working on together again, like I said, with Wageningen University. We're also working on new crops, and that will be presented later. We have formed a spin-out Lionflex to develop dandelion for all-natural rubber production. We're also working on a trait called apomixis, seed set without fertilization. It's quite a technical topic. I cannot go into it too much. But the impact with that is that you can genetically freeze a plant variety out of a very wide biodiversity population. You can freeze it genetically, and you can put it then on the market as a very homogeneous, very high-performance crop. And that's a technology which we call apomixis. And the impact of that technology is that with apomictic seeds, you can instantly freeze the best genotype. And thereby, you can revolutionize plant breeding, shorten the often lengthy breeding cycles. Final example, just as an introduction for my colleague Anker Sørensen, who will speak later. It's about the new and improved crops. We have established a joint venture together with Barenbrug. So Kijin and Barenbrug have formed a joint venture, Lionflex, and we are producing a new crop which is producing all-natural rubber in its roots. And Kijin used genomics to develop the world's first interspecies hybrid, the Kazakhstan dandelion, crossed with the Dutch dandelion, establishing flexless hybrids. So my final 2 slides are about the collaboration that we have set up, and we will further develop. It's all about, of course, Crop Innovation and Business 2022. in Hainan, September 2022. But we are also developing and anticipating maybe additional conferences later. The China-Netherlands collaboration also foresees a talent program, exchange of scientists, breeders, trainees and students. And we are already doing that, partly. There's also going to be a China-Dutch entrepreneurship initiative in agri-food. Because in many cases, academics, universities, partly also knowledge-providing biotechnology industries, they provide a lot of inventions and discoveries. But it's then sometimes very difficult to translate it into a real practical application via the breeders for the growers. And that's where we need entrepreneurship, both here in Europe and also in China. And we want to exchange, again, like Mr. Zhu also said, we again want best practices and teaching and training in that. It's not only about, let's say, organizing the facilities and facilitating these developments. It's also about practical R&D programs and projects on trade and crop improvements. Hainan is a subtropical area, so the first crops we are anticipating are going to be tropical crops, which have to be genetically improved as well. And of course, finally, and I hope, and I trust that it will end up in joint success stories, which we also can jointly present, not only to China and the Netherlands, but also to the world. So thank you very much. And I would like to end with a statement. As a technology innovation engine for crop improvement, Keygene innovates not only for our strategic partners, but especially with our partners. So we are not working in splendid isolation, we are collaborating. And that's very interesting, of course. Keygene is dedicated and proud to bring together and collaborate with different and various people, ideas, projects and partners from the Netherlands and China, followed by executing, we have to be very practical, by executing a solid amount of breakthrough and high quality research. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Arjen. I think that's a very comprehensive overview of all the innovative projects that you are working on. I think this presentation has been received with interest. I see that we have a question from the audience. Christophe is asking about the role of epigenetics in traits and breeding and how to approach that.
Oh, that's a very specific question. Thank you, Christophe, for that. Yeah, epigenetics, it's going back to the old Lamarck approaching of genetic stability. We are convinced that epigenetics can be and is important in trait improvement. However, we are still working on it because, let's say, in contrast to mutations and alterations in the DNA, it is not always clear yet how stable epigenetic changes are if it's in the course of producing hybrid seeds, for instance. So we are convinced that epigenetic changes are important for trait quality and the various traits we are working on. However, to catch that in a seed, which is basically what we do as a breeding company, we develop better seeds with better software programs in them, which is the DNA, of course, adjusted. How to link that with epigenetic changes, that is still under investigations.
Okay. I think that's clear, but Christophe has one follow-up question. We have time for that. Are the new so-called protein-rich plants developed with partners?
Partly, we are already collaborating with partners, but there is always room for further. For instance, the Yellow Pea project is already a project with an American partner, and we are setting up partnerships with respect to faba bean here in Europe. So partly yes, partly not.
Okay.
There's a China question coming in. Yeah.
And that can take some time sometimes. Yeah, but I think it's very interesting to have this interaction and discuss these things. I'm not sure how long it will take for the question to come in. If not,
Otherwise, maybe it can come back in the general discussion.
yes.
Yeah.
It's coming in, I hear.
Okay.
But in any case, I think that's the whole purpose of this event, right? To cooperate. Yes, there we have it. A Chinese herbs growing company is asking if Keygene has a collaboration on medical plant varieties.
Yeah, we are having. We already executed earlier projects on poppy. Poppy is, of course, an important crop for medical compounds. And we are having a project on medicinal cannabis, but not yet on herbs.
So room for expansion, maybe.
Room for expansion,
Yeah.
and of course you have to realize that many of the herbs you have to start from scratch because there has not been much genetic research yet, often in those herbs. So often we have to establish, let's say, a research program from the start together with our partner.
And what would that kind of collaboration look like? How does the process evolve when establishing such cooperations?
Well, the first thing is that with breeding, you're always looking for biodiversity. And you want to see what is crossable, what the genetic diversity is in the crossable population for your crop species of interest. So I guess that one of the first things we would like to do for herbs is that we would like to take a look at the genetic diversity of the herb crop and the counterparts. And it also depends if the herb is crossable, because sometimes the crops are difficult to cross. So we would like to take a look at genetic diversity first, and discuss also with our partner how to approach that.
And take it from the start.
And take it from the start, yeah.
Okay, I think that's very clear. If there are no more questions coming in, I think we have to say goodbye to Councillor Su, who has other obligations, and will leave us today. Arjen?
Yeah, so Councillor Su, you have supported this collaboration very strongly. And on behalf of Crop Innovation and Business China, I would like to very much thank you for that. I would like to thank you also on behalf of Keygene. And I've got 2 presents for you.
Yeah, it is my duty. It's a great pleasure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I have 2 presents.
One sec.
这个我来这个荷兰时间并不长。
I'm arriving Holland not for a long time. I'm staying here for about a year. I have 3 experience. The Netherlands is not a very big country with has a quite much lesser population, about 1.70 million people. But since 400 years ago, the Dutch has already played an important global economic role. Plus the Netherlands represent wind and rich in water. So that for China is prosperity. Now in China we have a position Hainan province, Yazhoubei in Sanya, and Nanfan Science and Technology City. How can we achieve through the high-end cooperation through this island and Netherlands? That's our task. Yeah.
So thank you very much. This is a typical Dutch liquor. So watch out with drinking too much of it. It's very strong. But you're a strong man, so.
Yeah, strong. Tastes good.
And Dutch cheese from Gouda. Cheese from from Gouda, from Edam. Cheese.
Yeah. It seems like a puppy thing.
Yeah, it seems like a puppy. Yeah.
Okay. I also had a souvenir for you.
Okay.
It's a very famous Chinese tea.
Ah, okay. So I very much like that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Okay. 好。
And have
祝愿这个会啊 ，form very successful. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll walk with
Today.
you.
Yes. Okay. As we're wrapping up here, we're moving on to the next presenter, who will speak to us from China. It will be an introduction of the Yazhou Bay Science and Technology City in Sanya, as just mentioned by Councillor Su. And the presentation will be given to us by Zong Sheng, who is the Deputy Director of that project. So thank you very much for your introduction, Mr. Zhong.
谢，钟先生您请。They're coming. Nanfan has a very long tradition. It's basically located in the south of Henan province, because here we have a very good natural conditions. The average temperature throughout the year is about 24 to 25 centigrade. So it does really satisfy the growth of demand of crops. That's why every year there are many scientists in agriculture with agriculture background to come to here to research and develop. Considering the national emphasis from, for instance, President Xi had visited us many times. In 2013, during his research study tour, he had pointed out that this is a very valuable platform for national agricultural research. It must be built into Nanfan Silicon Valley that integrates scientific research, production, sales, scientific and technological exchange. Especially in July 2021, this year, the 20th meeting of Deep Reform Commission, the CPC Central Committee, they stated that we're going to steadily promote the construction of our base. In order to proceed this strategic force and request from our president, since 2015, we have received a lot of support from former ministry. We have developed this specific zone. In this plan, construction plan from 2015 to 2025, it is basically focused on 3 cities and counties. Basically, the breeding protection area is about 268,000, including 53,000 core area. So it basically is focusing on GMO breeding. We are focusing on construct the science and technology city in order to lead the other 2 areas development, so that we can change the former situation. That means people come here during the nice season, and after that they fly away. So we want to change this situation. So we want to develop a long-term science technology development situation. Now I want to give you a brief introduction about this Nanfan Silicon Valley. First of all, our general idea is actually trying to focus 3 strategic industry, which contains 4 strategic positioning, aiming with a 2-5 years plan to achieve a series of goals. So focusing on the agriculture crops and poultry. Our 3 strategic position, we're trying to trying to provide policy relevant and also the base for breeding and facing the three industries and 4 strategic positioning. So we want to achieve through 2 terms of 5 years plan. We're trying to create industry value chain and also specific plans. First of all, we would like to invite state or national level institute and research institutes. We want to achieve the occupation of the facility achieved more than 95%. We would like to invite more than 500 enterprises within the first 5 years plan. And in the second term, we would like to achieve invitation of more than 30 provincial and ministry-level research institutes. In our seed industry, and also our seed sample, we would like to achieve more than 300,000. And this is basically our positioning and our goals so that we can make this area flourish. In order to accommodate the tasks, we have a general layout and of construction planning. So we're focusing about 1 city, 2 bases, and 3 parks, so that we can set up our branding. We could organize the science and technology research to facilitate all the enterprises, institutes, so that we can transfer the base for the introduction of global plant and animal germ balsam resources. So to achieve this, we need to have a basis. That's why we mentioned that our land occupation is quite vast. That's why we have more than 80,000 mu. And also, we would like to have a crop seed industry park. So via this park, we could set up an important branding for the seed industry. And this is a very important raw material for us to further enhance the park business. And the third one is to build a livestock and poultry seed industry park. Surrounding this overall layout, we have divided 6 major tasks. For instance, we would optimize the breeding base facilities, accelerate the construction of major scientific research facilities. And we have also dedicated projects under these 6 tasks. Most of them had already kick off the period. Strengthen the construction of modern seed industry park. We plan 3.48 billion yuan. We need to construct the basic facilities and to give us the conditions to be able to position ourselves and be able to facilitate the high-end research activities. Apart from these conditions and also the hardware facilities, we need to build the mechanism as well as the system around it. We have set up 5 operational mechanisms. For instance, the biosafety, prevention and control, and also multi-level linkage and coordination mechanism, and build an open shared operating mechanism, improve the full service, public service, and strengthen the mechanism of interconnected industrial development. Only with this kind of mechanism can enable us to improve the cost and have cost quality efficiency. Also, we like to improve laws and regulations, strengthen the policy innovations, increase financial support, and guarantee the use of land and sea, and also strengthen the talent guarantee. With all this guarantee mechanism, especially the law and policy, we would like to emphasize our intention to integrate with a global and international operational mechanism. For this kind of facilities, we would like to integrate and also our policy and rule of game with the international standard, so that we can facilitate the global platform, so that we can facilitate exchange in this park. At the end, through the construction of this Silicon Valley, we would like to achieve certain goals. For instance, the provisions on the seat and of Hainan Free Trade Port, as well as the regulations on protection of new plant varieties in Hainan Free Trade Port. These are very important approaches, measures. So by using these policies, and so we are differentiate ourselves significantly than other free trade ports because we have a very advanced mechanism and innovative policy support. For instance, we also emphasize social benefits. For instance, we under this goal, we would like to achieve the national food safety and also national plant variety testing centers. Also, cooperation centers for protection review, new varieties. We would like to achieve some foreseeable social benefits and ecological benefits. In terms of economic benefits, we have seen many new results in this area. We would we focus that we could enhance the economic result from science and technology exchange about 100 billion yuan RMB. In the end, this is about, we would like to give you a long-term goal. We would like to be the leading by the top domestic scientific research national team and conservation of germplasm resources and Nanfang breeding and seed production, seed processing, logistic trade, and social service system. This is our goal, long-term goal. We wish the success of this pre-event. We hope our many alumni sitting at this event and also colleagues could meet physically in the autumn of 2022 in Hainan. Thank you.
Very comprehensive overview of everything that's currently being developed and happening in Yazhuo Bay. And also thank you for the invitation to visit you next year. I hear we have no questions from the audience, but I'm not sure if someone here at the table maybe has one or two.
Yeah, I have two questions for Deputy Zhang, if that is possible. My first question is, Hainan is a subtropical island. What type of crops are you going to work on in your center of excellence, which you are going to build up? Is that subtropical crops, or are those the crops for the whole of China? So, what type of crops are you going to work on, or to focus on?
The major breeding crops include a wide varieties, including rice, chili, vegetables. Meanwhile, we are a very important aquatic breeding base because the climate conditions here is very favorable. We have more than a few decades breeding records. Therefore, we are confident we are suitable for most of the agriculture enterprises as well as related research and technology institutes to come here.
Okay. Yes. We have a question from the audience again. Christoph has another question for you. His question is, what will be the role of China and this new center you've just mentioned in new crops, especially in the replacement of meat, milk and fish by modern techniques?
In fact, our main goal is to satisfy the demand and desire from our people. For instance, food safety and very good quality of protein products. This is our major drive to build this platform. As well, we would like to reduce the cost of innovation and increase the efficiency of innovation. And this is our main goal, to build this platform. Thanks.
Okay. That's a very clear answer. Thank you very much.
I have another question.
Yes, you have one more.
I think we have some time.
Yes.
So, Deputy Zhong, you stated that Hainan is a free trade zone. Will that also enable a smoother and, let's say, quicker, better exchange of genetic material? So both seeds from the world into Hainan and into China, but also the other way around. The export of seeds and genetic material from China to, for instance, the Netherlands. Do you think that the free trade zone will make that more possible?
Yes, I believe so. I believe the Hainan Free Trade Port is at the moment the most open and international development trend in China. Is very fundamentally different than other free trade ports, especially focus on the policy innovation and mechanism innovation. And we would. Our goal means that we are trying to provide a policy to enhance the most open possibility for in and out exchange. This is the most efficient economic trade port. And also, we would like to increase the confidence of people working in this area so that to provide the most efficiency, not only for the domestic, but also for the international companies, enterprises, institutes, and also resources, providing Chinese resources to go to global. So we are trying to create a parallel
I think that answers your question,
economic circulation.
Okay. There are no further questions from the audience or from China. So I'd like to thank you, Deputy Director Zhong, for your very comprehensive presentation. Very interesting to learn more about the beautiful region that's currently being developed. As there are no further questions, we'll be taking it back to the studio here in Wageningen, where next to me stands Jeroen Wouters, who is the lead global connections at Food Valley. Food Valley was just being briefly introduced by Arjen, but it's a very interesting region and the reason why so many good innovations come from this part of the Netherlands. So we'd love to hear more about that, Jeroen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith, and a great pleasure and honor to be here and share with you the story about Food Valley and to guide you along in that during this morning. And the tagline of Food Valley is shaping the future of food together, and it's a great pleasure to highlight that for you. So my name is Jeroen Wouters, involved in the international activities of Food Valley, and next to that also Innovation Manager in Sports and Nutrition at the Dutch Olympic Training Facilities, and I will bring along one little example of that also today. But we'll mainly focus on the activities at Food Valley. And as mentioned by Arjen already, the Food Valley ambition is really focused on the year 2050 to bring tasty, affordable, healthy and sustainable food. And that is a large ambition, and what is directly known from that is that that's not done by one organization by itself, but of course by the collective of a lot of organizations. And as Food Valley, we thrive by connecting that and bringing the relevant players together. And we have various ways of doing so. And today I will focus quite a bit on protein shift, a topic where I've got a lot of crop involvement also, and share with you that information in this presentation. This is maybe a bit of a complex picture, but I would mainly like to bring you in this slide to the red indicated topics, and that is basically the innovation support we provide at Food Valley. And we have various areas where we say, hey, here's our focus. And that is, for example, on global connections. I'm personally involved in that, so all type of international connections and collaborations. Like today are also here facilitated in the interaction with China and the Netherlands. But next to that, there's a program on entrepreneurship, stimulating companies to grow, startup accelerators and building new companies in that and scaling them also. A third program is on talent and facilitating development of young professionals in this field. Another aspect goes with shared facilities, and I will highlight a bit on that also. And understanding the ecosystem is facilitated by the ecosystem intelligence and find new partners or insights or new development in that respect. Now, next to that, we have the innovation fields, which I will come back later. But this is a crucial part for us, as indicated also with Arjen, with Kijin in a central part of it, also in its way of working, connecting science towards business and bringing that connection to it. But the fun thing about Food Valley is that it's a thriving community with a lot of partners, involvement, working on the collaboration between business and science, but also in the total transition and bringing a lot of involvement of that. Now, there's a lot of members in this respect, from small to large corporates, and together the agenda and the topics are being defined. Inspiration comes also by meetings and bringing the people together on the relevant topics. And what is unique in this is that there's also a large group of international members. So the ignition point, the starting point is a lot around Wageningen in the Netherlands, where there's a heavy science-driven agro-food field. But the openness and connectiveness to international members is highly facilitated in that. Now, and then here are the fields of innovation. Protein shift, which I will cover in a moment. Another circular agri-food, involving a lot of sustainability and circularity type of topics. Topic of food and health, actually also focusing quite a bit on fruit and vegetable consumptions, and also to make the healthy choice the easy choice for consumers. And then the fourth topic, smart and digital technologies, basically underlying all of these, because in all these areas we see the relevance of a lot of data and making smart use of that technology also. Now, protein shift, to focus on that. Also here, it is for us relevant to connect partners in that area and to provide relevant tools. And I will explain a few of those to you in a moment. And here we see a lot of activity. This is a bit of a technical explanation of bringing a balance in the consumption of animal and plant-based proteins. And you see that that is shifting over the years, but also that in various populations there are quite some differences in that. And to work on that and to find the right balance is a key item of the protein shift topic. And in that we see that a lot of partners are needed. and it's not just research, it's not just companies, it's not just education, but there's a whole wide variety of different partners involved. And that is indicated here. Quite a lot of logos for you, so I won't go in all details, but we see that there's a lot of activity at this moment, and that we are really over a sort of a tipping point where we see that the protein shift is taking place towards a more plant-based orientation. So this is an overview of organizations. And here are a lot of companies, the business network around that. We refer to the protein cluster, indicating a lot of companies that are thriving in this field and driving these new innovations. But the fun thing is, it is all about projects on one hand, and products, and I would like to share with you here the example of Oya, which is basically producing a plant-based meat alternative. It's on basis of soybeans, and that has been, well, developing over the years. And at Food Valley, we have really seen this from an early idea, and we supported that with a Food Valley Award earlier on, but now it's grown to a major business and going into a scaling phase with about 200 employees and further supplying this type of products throughout the world, and also diversifying the type of products that are being produced. And the other aspect is, I showed you a lot of logos, but it's also a lot about the people. And we like to indicate that as well. And we do that here with the pictures. And we refer to this group of people also as game changers, coming up with new ideas, new innovations, and new concepts. And it's such a pleasure to see that happen and develop. And for example, you see soy-based milk being presented, but also a lot of meat analogs and plant-based alternatives. Also involving a lot of the protein crops that have just been highlighted, fava beans or pea proteins, etc. So it's all about the people as well. Now, from the protein cluster, we like to dive into the market and see where we can obtain insights and how things are developing, but also allowing to identify white spots or areas for further involvement and development. So that is a crucial aspect also of the activities of the protein cluster, to highlight those and further develop on that. And then oftentimes public-private partnerships start to collaborate and work on those. And that is basically a process to facilitate and to assist in. Another very practical example is the topic of shared facilities. And especially in the field of protein and meat replacing options, scaling is a crucial item nowadays, because there's a lot of ideas generated, so sharing of research and development facilities is key, but also to upscale it and to bring it to larger productions. And for that we set up a facility map, very practical tool to find locations which can help you in development and demonstration, but also in scale-up and production. So that is looking for spaces and openness and bringing also efficiency in this development, and by that supporting the speed of innovation as well. Now, and here I would like to highlight one of the examples of a public-private partnership, and that is called E2Move. It's an innovation hub for sports and nutrition. I'm personally involved in that public-private partnership. It brings together a variety of partners going from research to practice in the field of sports and nutrition, and also, for example, a hospital setting is involved in that. And on the other hand, we see government involved, and in this case it's the province of Gelderland, but also a variety of companies. So it's bringing in practice, education, research, and also the company perspective. Now, and also here we see a development in a lot of plant-based protein options, especially for athletes also in that respect. And here we see quite some of these topics coming back. For example, algae or oat products, or different variants to also provide the athletes with options in plant-based proteins, which is quite a challenge, because in a regular athlete's diet, quite a focus is on animal-based proteins. And by this and this development, we have been focusing on this topic, but also further developing the whole item. And now we see organizations around us indeed describing it as a plant-based protein powerhouse and terminology like that. And we appreciate that, and we keep on building it in that balance between plant-based and animal-based type of protein sources. And also here, it's crucial to highlight the person behind that. And that's my colleague Jeroen Willemsen, who's the innovation lead in Protein Shift, and also bringing a lot of parties together, and also bringing it at the international level. And quite some interactions over the recent years, also with China, have been taking place in this area. So looking for global expansion also, and also by bridging the expertise areas back from China to the Netherlands as well. So that is giving a good example of that. Then I would like to wrap up with another example. Recent development is that Food Valley NL teamed up with the World Economic Forum and a whole group of partners again indicating the public-private partnership with corporates in this case involved, but also research and government, to develop into a food innovation hub Europe. And what is taking place in the framework of the World Economic Forum is that a network of food innovation hubs is in development, facilitating and supporting innovation in various fields, but also crossing that over the various borders and thinking of local systems, how to implement that. And there we see back the same type of topics, and we bring that really to an international level. And for example, a very practical example is that we actually tomorrow, on World Food Day, announce the winners of a booster program. And that's a program supporting initiatives on personalized nutrition, in this case aiming at reducing obesity. And also in this topic we see quite an attention to plants and fruits as relevant sources. But that is giving also an insight on the international developments, and definitely a very new and exciting development to collaborate also in the area with World Economic Forum and also with the United Nations closely next to it, and working on the sustainable development goals that are in front of us in that respect as well. With this, I would like to thank you for your attention. As I said, a crucial item is to get connected and make connections and international collaborations. So it's a pleasure to highlight that with you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Jeroen, for that very interesting overview. We already received a question from the audience. Christophe had one again. I'm not sure if you're the right one to answer it, or maybe someone else at the table. But the question is, given the geographical location of the Netherlands and Food Valley therewith, what is the role of algae in the development of new food products?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question and an interesting topic. This production of algae is fully fermenter-based. So that is basically taking place in large-scale fermenters. So it could be taking place at any location, and provides, depending on the type of algae that are being cultured, various nutritional items to it also. On one hand, you can cultivate algae for proteins. On the other hand, you can also dive into, let's say, the fat type of fractions that can be produced by the algae. All depends on the selection of the typical algae itself and the type of substrates that are being used. But location-wise, this is all, let's say, fermenter-based cultivation.
Fermenter-based, okay. We have another question, also relating to the previous presentations. Shital is asking, how do you foresee collaboration in this field between Food Valley and China, between Hainan, for example? What has been done so far, and what will come of it in the future, as you foresee?
Yeah, a very great question. And that's also the reason for being here and providing the openness. Earlier, we have not been acting and interacting with Hainan, but especially with the combination with Kijin, there's definitely good ways to look into that. And in earlier years, we have been very active with various parts of China and interacting with organizations facilitating that also, but also in the interbalance between science and companies, for example. So we have been supporting in that. Also providing very practical items, also together with OostNL, in making site visits and missions towards China on specific topics. And at the end, that is one of the crucial steps, meeting each other, getting to know each other, and by that defining where ways of collaboration can start to happen.
Okay, thanks. I think that's clear. And yes, this event is a starting point for that, obviously. There are no further questions, but I think you have something to say.
Yeah, I have a question. As a board member of Food Valley, I know that there are very talented and very, let's say, ambitious young people in the Food Valley team. Can you tell a little bit more about them? So you stated that Food Valley has established a hub for World Economic Forum. That's very abstract, high level, international. Then you have projects and so on. But then you have the Food Valley team.
Yeah.
So what people are they? What is their expertise? How do they innovate? How do they work? Can you tell a little bit?
Sure.
How many are there?
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about that?
Definitely. No, so I've been involved at Food Valley since 2014, and also was close to the start of Food Valley in 2004. At that time, I was based in the US, working for a research company also, and making those connections. And connecting is, I guess, a key item of the Food Valley crew. There's 30 staff members at Food Valley, and that is quite a young group, I have to say. And one of the key characteristics, we mapped that, honestly, with looking at what type of profiles. And we see quite an activator type of oriented people, but also people willing to connect. And we have then divided the attention in that matrix I showed you in the beginning. So the innovation teams are there, but next to that also the innovation support areas. And there is a group of young individuals looking into that, for example, in talent, and how to stimulate also talent to think in collaboration.
So are they all Dutch or?
The majority is Dutch, yeah. There's a few American-based colleagues, for example.
So are there still open places for people from China, or just?
Well, yeah, that is a good question. We don't have an Asian representation in our team itself, but definitely open to look for that as well.
Okay, so maybe the audience feel free to send a note or to send an email to Food Valley.
Yeah. Make that connection. Yeah,
I think so.
I think that's a good idea, and I think that's always welcome, right?
Yeah, no, it's facilitating. Well, it's very nice. And maybe looking at the time, we over the years also had an ambassador program.
Yeah.
And the ambassador program was basically focused for university students from Wageningen University, young students, to get an additional year, and by that also participate in the activities of Food Valley. And we had a very keen group of Chinese participants in that also, and for us assisting in making the bridge with China as well.
Yeah, I think we had one or two also working at Kijin at that time.
Yeah. So that was
I remember well. Yeah.
Okay. So perhaps that's something to include in our future cooperation. Excellent. Sure. Okay. There are no further questions coming from the audience, and we've come to the point where we're going to take a short break. First, I would like to thank you, Jeroen, for that very interesting overview. We'll be taking a short break. We will be back with you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody, at the online pre-event of the first Crop IB China. Glad to have you all back after the short break. The first speaker after the break is based in the beautiful Yazhou Bay again. I would like to give the word to Xia Mian, who will tell us about seed innovation in Hainan Province from his role as head of cooperation and exchange. Thank you very much.
下面 Thank you, the hostess. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to give you a brief introduction about our laboratory. First of all, why this laboratory is established in Hainan Province or Yazhou Bay? Because this Hainan Island is a natural warm glasshouse. It's a very natural condition, have a natural climate condition. More than 70% of the 7,000 new crops varieties bred since the founding of PRC. More than 200,000 more of maize and rice are in this area. Every year, the output of crops are more than 35 million kilos. It represents 10% of total national output of crops. So that shows Hainan Island bear a very important task to secure national food safety. At the moment, our laboratory had already delivered certain foundations. At the moment, we have already completed 268,000 more science research and breeding protection area, 53,000 more of science research and breeding core area. In addition to that, we have already established animal and plant seed base for the states. We have more than 100,000 square meters of science research space. The Mass Innovation Center is here. The most unique feature is that the Hainan Free Trade Port provides a very special favorite conditions. For instance, it conducts zero tariff. Therefore, we can benefit from this zero tariff. For instance, import our laboratory equipment. We have at least 10 to 20,000 cost reduction comparing with cities like Shanghai and Shenzhen. And also, we emphasize the protection of IP. And also, we have a very open or even more open policies for seed industry. Our strategic position is to aim at the science and technology major problems in seed breeding, aiming at major national food security requirements and international frontier science and technology, create seed accurate molecular design innovation platform. In this chain of seed design innovation, we focus on frontier seed design as well as variety design until the development of the chain. At the moment, our laboratory had collected universities, institutes, as well as enterprises, the most leading scientists from all of these organizations, from CAS, from Zhejiang University, Nanjing Agricultural University, for instance, also Zhongzheng Group, Signeta, that be known, this kind of enterprises. At the moment, our laboratory was building, is going to build 170,000 square meters of physical space. Investment is about 2.8 billion yuan, and equipment with more than 7,000 sets of scientific research equipment. And we are trying to focus on key scientific and technology, and also focus on creating conditions for enhancing the exchange platform. In addition, we have a pioneer area for modern biotechnology breeding for scientific research and to secure the scientific research. In terms of international cooperation and exchange, we're looking forward to work with international companies, scientists, to conduct exchanges. At the moment, we have cooperation with CIPAMS and establish of the Belt and Road International Scientific Organizations with 30 units from 14 countries. Also, with Brazil, we have Embrapa. This is focused on the soybeans improvement. Also, we have cooperations with Dutch seed experts, and we hope that more Dutch seed experts can join our force to further innovate seed and varieties. We have also built an innovation park. In this area, we have Chinese Academy of Science could cooperate with international academy and institute, and also facilitate international congress, and also provide support for attracting international talents, increase our reputation, and also looking for more partners to support our seed breeding industry. In our innovation park, is in Hainan province with many unique features. Apart from a beautiful environment and favorable climate, we have a favorable free trade port, also the visa policies and free visa application policies. Also, in terms of equipment, samples, cross-border exchange, and transport also enjoy favorable policies. This provides the most favorable conditions for innovation and research. In our Yazhou Bay laboratory, through the system mechanism innovation, carry out the open competition mechanism to select the best candidate system, break the scientific research innovation and market demand for the disadvantage of two pieces of skin, explore the new agriculture country. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Xia. I think it gave a very good overview of what you're working on. We have no questions from the audience, but perhaps we have one or two here at the table.
I have always questions.
That's why I was saying so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Xia, for your very nice presentation, and I would like to wish you good luck with the further development of your innovation park and all the innovation centers. You stated that one of the advantages, besides all the laboratory equipment you have and all the, let's say, scientists you are trying to connect, and that one of the advantages is the free trade port. and that it results in exchange of materials and equipment, and import of equipment, and maybe also export of equipment. So what about, and you also stated that there is an open policy for the seed industry. So can you elaborate a little bit further on what you mean with open policy for the seed industry? So how do you foresee, let's say, the collaboration between international seed companies, biotech companies from an international origin? How do you see that happening in Hainan? What is the future for that? Is there exchange of materials possible? Is there exchange of personnel possible? What is your opinion about that?
In the area of seeds in our Yazhou Bay, we've emphasized protect IP for seeds. This enable the scientific research as well as seed-related exchange as well. Breeding work could provide guarantee and trust. Secondly, in terms of the resources, we would like to promote international resources sharing. By implementing a free trade port law, we emphasize importing the seeds from outside China, as well as exporting Chinese seeds to international markets. We are have specific policies allocated on this island. This is aiming for promoting seed exchange as well as corporations. For instance, with Brazil soybeans improvement corporation, we have a lot of experiences in the rice corporation in Asia, in Brazil. So for Brazil, we focus on soybeans. We are welcoming the seed experts to come to our island for international corporations. Our policies are relevant and trying to be open to get the Chinese knowledge to go to overseas easier and vice versa, so that the seed can be quickly introduced to the market.
I think
there's a question which is relating to that. Yeah.
I think that answers your question, and we have a follow-up question from the audience for you, Mr. Xia. The question is, suppose we will set up a Dutch seed daughter company in Hainan. Can we do cross-border exchange of the genetic materials within the company?
We definitely welcome Dutch companies to establish daughter companies on our island. For instance, the breeding materials from the Netherlands come into China, aiming at science and scientific and research purpose. That's not a problem. However, once you involve Chinese breeding materials, at the moment, there might be some barriers. However, we hope we could
something to look
have
forward
more
to
pragmatic
then.
and more open.
We have another question from the audience for you, Mr. Xia. Is there any plan for research on medical plants in Yazhou Bay in Hainan?
In terms of medical plants, we are conducting Chinese herbal research. There are certain scientists at the moment are working on these subjects.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question. What are the tools used for molecular design of seed improvement, which are considered as non-GMO towards molecular design of seed traits?
At the moment, we are focusing on genetic editing work. However, according to the Chinese biological law, in this area, Hainan province government is trying to further promote an open environment for genetic-related design or editing work. We are in the progress of implementing and improving the work and law-related works.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answer. As there are no more questions here, I would like to thank you very much for your presentation and for your elaborate answers. And we'll be moving on to the next presenter, who is with us in the studio here in Wageningen. Anker Sørensen, he is the VP New Business at Keygene. We'll talk a bit more about something that was already briefly touched upon by the previous presentation, a new source of natural rubber. Love to hear more about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith, and you will. Actually, I'm very happy to tell you the story about the rubber dandelion on this event. It's an excellent example of what we call crop improvement, which we already heard from Ian is at the heart of Keygene, but it's also in my heart. My passion throughout my career has been crop improvement, and this is an example that I can now show you, which started in Keygene about 10 years ago. So as many things in this world, things start with an idea that you can imagine something which is not there yet. And that idea turns into an ambition. And this story is kind of taking you along that road that we had to take this idea we had into something real. The idea, of course, is about the natural rubber. You may know that most of the natural rubber in the world, more than 90%, is produced from the hevea tree, which is only growing in the tropical areas of the world. When potentially that could be not enough for the future. I'll tell a little bit more about that in the next slide. But at least our idea was to develop a crop that could also be grown in the rest of the world, so in the temperate region as well as perhaps also in the tropical region and the subtropical regions, to expand the possibilities of producing natural rubber in the world. And when we then turn that idea and ambition into something real, it kind of translates to that we need to develop a new agricultural crop for the world. So that is what we try to do, and having an idea and ambition is nice. But if there's no need, it doesn't really make any sense. There are a lot of great ideas that do not respond to any societal or demand demand in the ag-food sector, but this one does. There is a big need for natural rubber. There is quite an increasing demand because of the growing population. And the fact that natural rubber is essential for many applications is not known a lot, but actually synthetic rubber based on oil is not useful for many of the applications that we need. For instance, a tire from an aeroplane would explode if it would only be from synthetic rubber. It needs the natural rubber to absorb the strength and the heat that are produced when you land a plane. So natural rubber is really an essential product for the world, and there is a need because of the growing demand, but also because of some potential problems in the growing areas. There's simply not so much tropical area still available to expand the production. So it would be nice to have an alternative. But if you want to look into the future, it's also good to go back to the past and see what is already there in terms of knowledge and what do we know. And the crop that we are talking about is called Taraxacum coxsagis. This is a dandelion species within the family of dandelions, you might say, but it's a special one because it produces rubber in its roots. It was discovered, as we say, by famous botanist Vavilov, and it is grown in the mountains of southeast Kazakhstan, also bordering into China, actually, in the mountain regions. And this is the only region of the world where this particular type of Taraxacum is growing. It's not really discovered, of course, by Vavilov, because when we talk to the Kazakh people in that area, they all had stories about they use this plant as chewing gum because it also contains a number of sugars and it has gum in it. So it was there for a long time, but it was discovered in the sense of scientifically, as I said. And there's also a nice story about a use of this particular crop in a period where the import of rubber from Asia was prohibited during the Second World War. Actually in Russia, but also in the US, they started emergency programs to produce rubber from this particular crop. It was not that successful, and all the seeds from that period have been lost. We have not been able to find any of it anymore. So we had to go back to the mountains to collect new materials to start a new breeding program. And when we looked at this, we kind of defined an ambitious target for ourselves. In order to be competitive in the market, we think we need to reach about 750 kilo of high-quality natural rubber per hectare. And when we then looked at this plant, the Russian or the Kazakh dandelion, Taraxacum coxages, it's a very small little plant. It does produce rubber, but we immediately came up with the idea to cross it with another Taraxacum. It's the common dandelion, or Taraxacum officinale. And many of you will know this plant because we kind of have problems getting rid of it in our lawn once it's there. So it's a very vigorous plant, and that is exactly what we needed. We needed to combine vigor, growth potential, yield, with the ability to produce rubber, because the common dandelion does not produce rubber in its roots. So our program very simply consists of a collaboration, you might say, a very intimate collaboration between two species. We call that an interspecific cross, leading to a new crop, which could then be used as an agricultural crop producing rubber. So that's how it started. And what do you then need more to really get that done? Is an approach. A molecular breeding approach is what we choose. So based on the knowledge of the DNA of where are these rubber, which genes are responsible for the production of rubber, and where are these genes in the genome of the Taraxacum coxages. And when we make crosses with this officinale, we can follow these genes in the crossing and segregating populations in the future. So you need to develop the tools to do that in an efficient way, which we did. And then you also need patience and perseverance, because the first crossing products that we made, they did not contain any rubber. So we need to do a number of years of back-crossing and selection work before we finally came up with an interspecific hybrid with a certain amount of rubber. And so in the first period of this program, we actually focused a lot on rubber, to get rubber content in these plants. You can say that when we started, each plant contained somewhere between 0.2 and 3% rubber per plant. And in the course of the first 10 years of work, we have now actually made immense progress in the amount of rubber that is within the roots of the dandelion plants. You can see in this graph on the left side some blue figures. This is from individual plants of Taraxacum coxages. There we even reach levels close to 20% of one single plant. And on the right side you see the more brown boxes. These are actually our hybrids. Remember, they started with 0%, and we are now already at the level of almost 10% of rubber in such individual plants. But of course, an individual plant is not enough to have a crop. There's a lot of other things that needs to be in place. First of all, if you want to grow this as an agricultural crop, each plant needs to be at least similar to the plant next to it. Although also for plant variety protection purposes, you need to have a homogeneous population. And also you need to have, of course, yield. So rubber is not enough, but yield is also important. And that is the second and third things that we have been working on simultaneously in the selection program: homogeneity, size, and vigor combined with this rubber content. And of course, these things are negatively correlated. So what we are looking for, using our molecular markers, is the breakage of the linkage between, let's say, the small plants and a lot of rubber. Very simply speaking, that's the essence of what this program has been about. When we finally had a breakthrough and reached these novel plants that could potentially be grown, we indeed, as Ian already mentioned, decided again to collaborate to take this story further into practice. So we looked a bit at the value chain that has to be built for this particular crop, all the way from R&D and breeding to seed production. Farmers have to grow it. We have to extract the rubber from the roots. Somebody has to compound the rubber to make it useful for products. Somebody has to make the products and get them marketed. And we decided, together with our partners, that the Lionflex company would take care of part of that. So not all of it. So our aim is to start with R&D and breeding, what we were already doing, and extend it all the way to extraction and production of natural rubber. That's what the Lionflex company is actually about. So a little bit about some of the steps in there that we have been taking in Lionflex since then. First of all, seed production. Many of you will know the fun of having dandelions in your garden is that you can blow away the seeds. But if you want to produce seeds, that's kind of a problem. So we needed to develop systems, and we are working with a vacuum cleaner system to actually collect the seed. But also the seeds are very inhomogeneous, so the seed processing process is also something that needs to be developed to get the seeds into a shape that they will actually all germinate when you put them into the field. That's why we also worked on germination, on priming, and on pelleting of the seeds, which you can see on the right part of the pictures, which is our current seed batch that we provide to the farmers. And actually that seems easier than it is, but you remember, if you are a weed, a Taraxacum growing in the wild, your strategy is to produce as many seeds as possible, but actually you know that only very few % of them will germinate. But if you are an agricultural crop, every seed that is sown, a valuable seed that you buy, has to germinate and turn into a plant. And when we move to the next step, which is the production, that turned out to be the most critical part of the process, to get all these seeds to germinate at the same time in the field, on the field conditions, without getting too many holes in our fields. And also on that, we call that root production phase. We have a team, which you can see down on the right, who has been working on that for a number of years already. And so it's kind of agronomy, which is also outside of Keygen scope, which is also one of the reasons why we put it also outside Keygen in Lionflex. But it's something that needs to be done if you want to realize this idea that we had 10 years ago of turning it into a crop. Currently, we have a number of fields in the Netherlands. This year, right now, we are harvesting about 5 to 6 hectares. And the last harvest was about 3,000 kilos dry matter per hectare. But we are very excited to see what it will be this year. It's kind of a continuous improvement program that we are in the middle of. After the roots, I actually have a movie which I'd like to show you about the harvest. So you can see there we are growing the dandelions on ridges. That is because if we grow them on ridges, we can more easily put the knife below them and get them out of the ground, because of course we are interested in the roots. The roots is where we have all the natural rubber. So we're using standard machines that are used for carrots or potatoes to get them out of the ground. The soil is being diminished, and here you can see the beautiful roots coming out of the soil at the end of the season, here in the Netherlands at least. We harvest them around September, October. And then we take them into the next phase, which is a washing phase. The reason why is actually that we found out that in the extraction phase later, we have a lot of problems with soil and sand, so we need to wash them. So they're all washed and cleaned, and then they go into storage until we are ready for the extraction phase of the process. So that is the final thing that we need to get under control in Lionflex, and we are actually experiment with a number of different ways of doing that. So on the left you can see a box of dry roots. But we're also experimenting with fresh roots. We're not sure yet what the best method is. Next to natural rubber, which is now about a level of about 10%, there's also a large fraction of inulin in the roots, which is actually a very valuable product in itself. And our extraction method is also geared towards harvesting all these fractions of the roots. On the right, you will see our beautiful natural rubber. But we're not really satisfied yet with the quality. So we are still working on an extraction method, either solvent-based, water-based, or fermentation-based, that will give us the correct quality. And quality means without any impurities, more or less. That's what we are aiming for. And with the correct quality, because if you look at the rubber in the root itself, the quality is really good. It has a very high molecular weight, higher even than Hevea. But during the process of extraction, you can kind of mess that up. So we want to make sure that the right quality rubber is actually being harvested, you might say, from the roots. That's what we're working on right now. Of course, in the meanwhile, we already connected with industry partners that were willing to test this novel rubber source for their products. We worked a lot with Apollo Vredestein to test the rubber for different tire applications. The tire on the right is actually being tested in winter and summer conditions, and they were very happy with the quality. The bike tire is also something we made a series of. And again, the grip of the field that is covered, that is touching the road, is the most important part of a tire. And that part is being built up of natural rubber in tires. And the natural rubber of Dandelion proves to be very useful for the grip characteristics in those different products. But this is just one or two of the 40,000 products that are being made with natural rubber. So there is really a big demand for, let's say, alternatives in this market. And the goal of Lionflex and Kijin and Barenbrug, the partners, is of course to be able to deliver that rubber within a few years to the market. I would also like to thank the collaborators in this. We started also together with the Wageningen University and other scientific organizations in the beginning, and we also could benefit from EU funding to do some of the initial research. We also worked with the Kazakh government to enable research also in Kazakhstan on this crop. We're working with an American partner to see if we can get it up and running there, and we are working with the province in the Netherlands that support us in the effort to scale up the production of natural rubber here in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anker, for this very practical, in-depth overview of one of the projects that Kijin is working on. I think it's very clear. Thank you. And the audience is also interested because we have a question coming in. What about the invasive status of the commercial plants? Is there any risk there? Can you harvest before flowering? And what is the biggest challenge in this?
Yeah, that is a very good question. So we did a number of studies to study this scientifically. And actually we went in Sweden. There was an area in the 50s and the 60s close to a Swedish breeding station, which we collaborate with, and where they kept the fields, where they used to have this Russian dandelion or the Kazakh dandelion in the 50s and 60s. So we went to those same fields and collected the natural population of dandelions which were around there, and then we kind of we used DNA technologies to look in the DNA if some of the Taraxacum genome could still be found in these natural populations in Sweden after 50, 60, 70 years, and we didn't find any. So from that point of view, we concluded that the risk of outcrossing, which is one of the risks that you can think of with invasive species, is very low. The other risk is, of course, spreading. What if it spreads all to all the gardens? So if you have a grass field next to our dandelion fields, which you want to keep there for your cows for many years, then I would be careful to put dandelion next to it, because of course there will be seeds flying over and they will settle in your grass field. But if you are in an agricultural setting of crop rotation, as we often are, it is not really a problem. So the seeds will germinate very easily in the autumn or the next spring. And if your next crop is, for instance, a monocot, a cereal, like wheat or barley or whatever, it's extremely easy to get rid of all the volunteers that are sprouting from this dandelion crop. That's from an economical point of view. From a genetic point of view, we have been working at two types of dandelions. One that requires vernalization, as we call it, so that it will only flower after winter. So that would give us the opportunity to have a non-flowering crop. And the other version is flowering immediately. We are not sure yet which one is the best in terms of yield and rubber, but at least we have some options to also play with not at all flowering, if that is what is needed. But to be honest, I don't think it's needed.
Okay, it's very clear. Thank you. We have another question from China. The yield you just mentioned, 750 kilograms per hectare, does that mean rubber production? So is that the actual output? Is it wet or dry rubber or root production, wet or dry root? Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah. So what the numbers I'm talking about are always dry matter. So without any water, so they are all dry. So our aim is to harvest this amount of dry rubber, so after extraction. That means that there's a lots of kilos of roots because they have 10%, so it would be 7,500 kilos of roots when we harvest them dry. They contain about 40% rubber, so it will be even about 15,000 kilos of fresh root material, which then turn into 750 kilo of dry rubber. And as I said, the current level is 3,000 kilos, 10% rubber, which gives you about 300 kilo at the moment.
Okay. Another question for you from China. What is the density of growing rubber dandelion? We know the density is related to the rubber production, so how does that work?
Yeah, that's also an agronomical question, and we need to adapt the density also to the harvesting equipment. What you saw in the film is a standardized harvester that is used for other crops. So we didn't need to build our own harvester. But if you want to optimize for dandelions, they would benefit from being grown closer to each other, definitely, because then you would have more kilos per hectare and more rubber per hectare. But the problem is then we would need to build a specialized dandelion harvesting machine, which is fine in the end when we have hundreds of thousands of hectares, but for now, with 5 hectares, that's just too expensive. So we kind of adapted to the mechanization that is available, which gives us a good harvest, but less kilos.
Okay. There's a follow-up question on that. From the whole value chain perspective, is it commercially profitable with this yield?
Yeah. That is our initial calculation, and we have done the business calculations to validate that over the years. And I have to say that even with that level, we still need to ask a higher price than the current price on the exchange market in Tokyo of natural rubber from Hevea. That is true. But we also know from all the studies of the International Rubber Board and others that at around 24, 25, there will be a shortage. There is a big expectation that the price will increase. Also because of the fact of the diminishing amount of land available. But also something which is worth to consider in the Hevea production is the intensive use of labor, which actually have to go out every night and cut the trees so that the rubber will drop into the cups. And it's an increasing challenge to find this labor force that is willing to do that for the wages that they are giving them. So also that is a factor that will drive the price up. So there is an increasing demand, production circumstances. So we think at around 24, 25, we will hit a profitable situation with our alternative.
Okay. There's another question from China. Are the seeds of this rubber line available on the market? And do you have any plans to collaborate with China in this specific field?
At the moment, there are no seeds available on any market. So we keep everything for the time being within Lionflex to try to set up the chain. before we start growing it. And once we have the chain available, we probably also will not sell seeds. We will probably sell rubber. But then we will expand to other areas. And we are talking also to the people from Yasu about opportunities also for Hainan, for this particular crop.
Okay, so already ongoing then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There's one more question. You've already touched upon it a bit, but what is the biggest challenge in scaling up the commercial production of this dandelion rubber?
Yeah, I have to say that what is or what was. So there were many, many big challenges, but we kind of took a lot of them already. And the one that is remaining is the extraction process. We really need to have an efficient, environmentally safe extraction process that will give us the quality that we need. So for now, that is the biggest challenge. But if you look back over 10 years, there have been many, many other challenges just as big. But those have been taken, I would say.
So from that, we could assume that this challenge will also be
Of
taken
course,
then.
it will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Very interesting.
Would you allow me
Of
a
course.
question?
Of course, yeah.
I was wondering, you've made many important steps already, and I think you're on the way to indeed coming to a commercial product. But I also understand you need some years before it can really be a commercial product. Can you estimate how many years you still need? That's my first question. And the second question, where do you think this crop will be grown? Because it will not be in the tropics probably, but do you already have an idea where this crop can be best grown?
Yeah. Also very good questions. So the timing is always a critical question to ask to somebody like me with a lot of optimism. But I think that if we can get the challenge which we talked about around extraction solved within the next 2 to 3 years, then we would be ready to scale up because the other pieces we have in place, right? So if we can get that challenge also done, as I said, in an economically, environmentally, and quality good way, then in 2 to 3 years from now, we would be ready for scale-up. And where would we then scale up? Initially, we have kept it in the Netherlands and the US. And the reason for that is that we actually want to tick all these boxes. So we need to build the case first. After that, it could actually expand to all temperate and subtropical regions in the world. I'm not sure if it would also work in the tropics. And the reason I'm saying that is not because I believe that it's not possible. It's simply because we have never looked at it. But for the temperate regions, I'm convinced it can be done in the soils that are high enough in organic soil. That's a prerequisite. So don't think about deserts and sands. You need to have a certain good quality organic soil to get it done. But that's all across the temperate region in the world.
Okay. I have maybe a last question. So suppose that we are producing rubber from dandelions. We could also maybe supply the rubber for the F1 racing circuit. Who would you like to supply the rubber to?
Yeah,
Max Verstappen from Red Bull, or Hamilton from Mercedes?
Well, of course, I would support Max Verstappen as the Dutch champion. He's actually called the rubber whisperer. One of the reasons why he's so successful is because he knows exactly how to treat his tires in the correct way, without worrying them too much or too little. So he's an expert in using the rubber, actually.
And I believe from the experiments from Vredestein, the rubber from dandelion has a little bit more stickiness to the road, right?
They call it grip. They have some tests for doing that, and it turned out that. But it also depends on the formulation, right? So and the composition. So in the rubber matrix, which is a huge molecule, you can put in many things. And the tire manufacturers, of course, that's their trade secret. But that really depends what you put in it, and the final composition, that depends the performance of tires. But what they told us is that the dandelion rubber in itself already contains some components that makes it easier for them to make the right composition for grip. So that is why I mentioned that aspect of the tire.
So Max, here we come.
Yes, very promising. Thank you, Anker, for that very interesting overview. As there are no further questions, we'll be taking this back to Yazhou Bay, to the next speaker based in China. Fang Xiaodong is the Deputy Dean of the BGI Institute of Life Sciences in Yazhou Bay, and he will be introducing new technologies that are currently being developed there. Thank you.
新技术. Good afternoon, everyone. I would say goedemorgen to the Dutch audience. Now I would like to share with you our work done in the area of multi-omics tools and their applications. We're focusing on the fundamental research for the life science. We have several study areas. For instance, there are certain non-profitable organizations, including institute, as well. We have academy and publication house. You know that the industrial block, we are doing the testing. It is basically focusing on research development for the industry. Also, we have done a lot of agriculture-related work. So all these different blocks of focusing area from life science point of view, we need tools. For instance, before the Middle Age, the humankind had many interpretations and understanding are quite primitive. Therefore, in the Newton time era, especially Newton as an individual with individual effort had already discovered the three principles, and therefore that enhanced our capability in understanding the human being, how to evolve, and as well as how the social societies developed and driven by what kind of forces. If we have not the microscope, if we have not the steam engine being improved, without all of these scientific tools, our life science research, as well as the related industry, have no easy starting point. From a scientific research point of view, we are trying to find fundamental impact factors as well as superficial impact matters. We can find the relationship between these two factors so that we can try to figure out the desired. For instance, from this slide, you see that we understand that how the we can see the development, how it is started from this diagram. In fact, now life science are very different than mathematics or physics, and because life has been evolved through hundreds of millions of years. Therefore, by adapting the natural conditions, the life have to adopt certain external factors, and that's why it is quite tangible, the progress. From the protein, from the genomics, to transcriptomics, it had many steps in between. nowadays we understand the DNA, RNA. We have sequencers. We also understand what kind of tools we need to apply when we for different kind of understanding. For instance, for imaging, we all understand what kind of tools are involved. Therefore, all of this understanding laid a very good base and also give the drive to the life science research and industry. For us, there are three significance. For instance, for us, the life science, we need to understand the read, write, and storage. We need to understand the data and to standardize the data. And that's, I think, the main reason for life science had speed up in the recent years in development, because it involved different disciplines of scientists that once we have taken into account, understand the examples, all other disciplinary scientists, such as from mathematics or physics, can join for. So it is not a standalone science. It is a multidisciplinary involved science area, scientific area. So the second part is about the rights, and so you have all different kind of tools can support us to read and write. So there are many. For instance, this is why. Later on, I will briefly introduce the tools involved for writing. Next page, please. In the area of IT, we all are aware of Moore's law. At the moment, it is still taking a very important role. After several decades, our sequencing cost has been reduced through last decades. So the cost has been reduced from $3.8 billion to $600 to do one single sequencing, genes sequencing. So why we are able to come to the era of Super Moore's law age? That's because all the what I mentioned, disciplinary involvement, all the technology involved make us discover that we could even speed up and industrialize our scientific results. Therefore, it provides a very positive and circulation. In BGI, we have done a lot of work since 2012, the acquisition of American company, which is NASDAQ listed company. So we have invested about 8 billion RMB to acquire all the hardware such as equipment to further improve and doing the research on improvement of this equipment, from the table testing equipment to industrial scaled equipment. So we are trying to involve a large scale to be able to satisfy different demands. Our biggest commercialized equipment, so we can produce 6 to 7 gigabytes per day. So this is also the highest processing possible machines available in the world. the moment when we're doing NIPD testing, for so many samples, we need a very highly automatic equipment. For instance, during the COVID testing, we need a very speedy testing process. So within 2 weeks, we can have the result. Why we are able to do so? Because we rely on our equipment. Why in Beijing and Hong Kong we could provide 3 to 5 days, establish a daily visiting sequence, about 1 million visitors, a testing center. For instance, not mandated supersonic testing. And in Sansha, for instance, this city, we have established a remote supersonic testing equipment. These are visible, but there are many invisible technologies behind this equipment. They are all in process of further development. I mentioned different kind of series of sequencing testing equipment. You can see the trend is the accuracy is increasing, the time consumed much faster. Of course, we still have a long way to go. Rely on our own platform. We have published many scientific results. It has been recognized, accepted by many institutes as well as commercialized companies all over the world. Now we'd like to give you an introduction about the work we've done in the area of synthetic biology. We have understand the principle how life is being operated, or let's say conducted. We're trying to introduce some new technologies based on the platform. Is it possible? Should we base on the original base to improve, to add, or should we develop a totally new synthetic biology platform? This synthetic biology provides us endless space for imaginations. For instance, there are many medicines with a high potential, business potential, commercial potential. They are maybe the first users group. The conditions, how can we produce high throughput, low cost, and high accurate testing machines? How can we provide a system that can assist us to have a artificially designed life, this principle? So we notice that more Laura's a graph. We have a colleague, because our colleague is based on her surname and her husband's surname, we named as Z curve. So you can see that based on the Moore law, the cost is reducing. A couple of years ago, we have we have synthesized a mega. In the future, we are ambitious to have even beyond the plant but maybe we should, we are focusing animals. In the past decades, we started this synthesizers layouts. Our synthesizers could be are comparable to many international renowned synthesizers. For instance, the error rate is only 3%, and the throughput, comparing with the most common Dr. Oligo, our throughput is 10 times higher. So comparing with an American producer, we are a couple of hundreds more in terms of output. So in terms of accuracy and the throughput and many other standards, we have a very competitive edge. We are at the moment promoting this equipment and trying to enhance certain fundamental research, corporations, as well as commercialize and industrialize this equipment. We are open for corporations to try to invite more scientists for corporations. This is certain publications in the past years. In terms of very concerned area in the synthetic biology, we understand IT is developing very fast. The storage development doesn't really match our demand. The speed in the digital storage is very unsatisfactory. At the moment, we are relying on silicon, but the storage space is only around 1 gigabaud. But now people start using graphene and think about 1 terabyte. But once we think about involved DNA, it is about 6 times faster. So we think DNA is a very high effective middle. Whether it can be achievable, we are in the process of researching. Now, this video on the left side, you can see it is the official opening ceremony of the founding of PRC. We store it in the DNA. So we created 2 comparable 100% similar videos. We have already approved that it is possible to use DNA for storage. So the software is as important as hardware. We have created, for this purpose, we have created a high performance coding technology. So how to convert 01, 01 to GCT or to the minus GCT. And also we can we should consider the loss then, and to achieve the final accuracy. So by using this closed loop system, we can achieve our desired result. Now I would like to share with some single cell stomachs with you. Along with the life science development, people are quite demanding about samples. In the beginning, we're trying to take the nucleic acid, trying to understand the structure of single cell genetics structure. In the past few years, we have activated a spatial temporal multi-omics. Because single cell indeed can help us. However, we do not understand this single cell where it's located in the individual objects. However, without a good tool, we cannot have a further understanding in depth. This is quite challenge, or I would say call it regrettable elements in the life science research. Many years ago, we have started from HEP to HCA. It is quite a it is recorded in a periodic table of human cells. In fact, when we use cornea, even one single cornea could be used, could be a difference in different objects. Therefore, focusing on single cell is not enough. I want to understand what more involved in the single cell. This is why we need new tools for human genome projects. And that's why last year we started a project. You can see that for single cell tool at the moment it's quite common from text. It's about a couple of more than $100,000. For BGI single cell equipment, it is about, the size is about 350 ml mineral water bottle. So it is a portable and quite convenient. And also for the testing samples is once-off test sample. So you throw it away. In terms of result, we involved as to do many works. At the moment, the published single-cell related omics technology development, what we can achieve at the moment are quite open structure for ATAC. Expression for a single-cell system enable us to better understand the accuracy of single-cell omics. For single cell cannot help us to recover the complete story. Therefore, we do not understand the structure, the environment the structure sits in. That's why we use it as histomics to help us to understand. We use the slide sequence to understand the every position, the cell information, the cell from every single position. Therefore, at a certain place at the moment, the cell, what kind of information cell is delivering. However, we are not the first one find this link. Texer and TGSP also had certain similar technology-driven equipment. There are two major factors, difference to reflect our added value. One is, for instance, the resolution as over the in the size of the demanding market. We make a significant difference. Our technology, our accuracy is 550 nano. So we started from 0.5 or 0.65. Our smallest is from 0.1. So we are not no longer at the same level. We're much more accurate. I would not spend too much time on the process done during the testing. Now you can see the biggest size we can produce is 13 by 13. This is the only possibility we can provide to the market. Later on in my presentation, you can notice many other encouraging results. Now, you would trying to understand, we are trying to use the perfect combination of time and space, trying to understand the evolution. This can help us to understand the process. Also, we had done a certain study in the tumor. It has a lot of immune cells in this area. It shows a complete immune system from a human being. So from here, you can see it in different stages when this human is evolving. So producing certain values for us to take a reference in the study. Further, we also have done certain research in the seed astomics, such as projects and different area, how what kind of messages the cell's expression and bring into us, in what time, in what space and position the cell is telling us the structure at that moment. All these need our technology to achieve the desired understanding. We need 200 different seeds, among which 10 need a high resolution imaging study. This is another project in the peanuts as well as a maize gene cell study. For astomics technology, what can we do with it in the future? Now, we think there are 4 main development trends in the future. First of all, we think this enables us to understand life. We can re-understand the structure of life, what really decide and influence. And also we can redefine disease. We can understand the chance the disease could take place. We have more reference factors. Also, we could re-understand autophagy. How does it started and how did it evolve and how does it change? What kind of organs during the process doing what influence? In the end, I could understand where are we coming from. We all now recognize Darwin's story. But once you put all the varieties together, we can understand better the origin. At the end, I welcome colleagues and everyone giving some feedbacks. And of course, we're looking forward to our cooperations. Thank you.
Deputy Fang. We have one question for you, Deputy Fang, from the audience. The annotation of new and large genomes is still very difficult. Are you using artificial intelligence to speed up this process?
Thank you very much. Good question. For instance, for the genes data, as well as that depends on our understanding of existing species. For artificial species technology could be applied in the artificial, let's say, life technology. We have done certain works in this area.
Thank you. We have a follow-up question for you, Deputy Zhang. What is BGI's plan and measures with the biobank with regards to data safety and privacy issues?
This is also a very important question. In this area, we are working according to international standards, especially in the National DNA Data Bank. We are applying the international standard. Because we are applying the IP standard as well as IP intellectual property applied international law, there is no such abuse or dispute in this area. In terms of safety, for instance, we involve artificial as well as automatic equipment. Next to that, in terms of data sequencing system, we are trying to secure the safety of data.
Thank you very much for your answer. We have no follow-up questions from the audience. So I'd like to thank you very much for your contribution to the event today and move on to the general Q&A. We'll be taking general questions from the audience that can be answered by the speakers. I have a few questions coming in here. The first one I would like to ask Zhongsheng in China. Building a germplasm bank, meaning a storage with many different seeds, requires strict PVP plant variety protection applications. How do you deal with this? How have you arranged that?
Mr. Zhong is just went out. I will take his place. In our progress of developing our Silicon Valley, we like to introduce a seed variety. Under this priority, we would like to implement, firstly, even higher standards in terms of IP protection. Can't hear. In terms of that involves material IP property protection.
We have a question for Arjen here in Wageningen now, a very different kind of question. Will Keijing contribute to establishing a seed research center at the University of Agriculture, Faisalabad in Pakistan?
Well, that's an interesting question. So Keijing is open to collaborations in many parts of the world, including Pakistan. However, we don't have a direct contact yet, so I would like to invite the person behind this question to contact us to talk about possibilities to establish something like that. But it's an open invitation to contact us or our local representative in Hyderabad or people here directly at Keijing Wageningen to set up let's say, a meeting and to discuss opportunities and possibilities. Yeah.
Okay, very open to that, so to say. Thank you. We have received another question for Mr. Zhongsheng or his replacement, Mr. Ye. Is there an ambition for Hainan to establish its own food valley, like the one we have here in the Netherlands?
Indeed, we are talking about similar ideas in terms of setting up food valley-like projects. Because we have such a favorable platform, free trade port in Hainan, we would like to establish a good relationship with scientists all over the world, especially in seed industry. And also the life science. We would like to join the efforts to pick up certain projects in these areas, including maybe the first project with Key Gene. Or even with certain provinces, or even deeper and wider cooperation with the Netherlands.
Thank you very much for your answer. We have a question for Jeroen here. Does Food Valley have any research or collaboration in application of medical plants in herbs or food?
Yes, a very good question also here. And as I mentioned, one of the key areas of Food Valley is food and health. And especially in this topic, personalized nutrition is a key aspect. And then we indeed dive into specific micronutrients and their potential benefit in health and nutritional profiling. So definitely, yeah, we see developments, as mentioned also earlier today, in the hennep type of compounds, but also in a large variety of other herbs and other plant-oriented products. So, and yeah, fine-tuning it to the actual needs of an individual is a key topic of personalized nutrition in it as well. And recently, one of the companies, also a company based from India, established itself here in Wageningen to further investigate such a topic in particular.
Thank you, Jeroen. I think that's very clear. Another question for Yazhou Bei, this time for Xiamen in China. Will there be a program to better understand polygenomic crops in order to improve them even further?
Polygenomics for crops is quite important in our lab. Many scientists are involved in this area. For instance, Professor Voisier, they have achieved many good results in the research regarding polygenomics. They are trying to help scientists have certain similar requirements to enhance their research further.
Another question came in for you, Mr. Xia. How can we get into contact with your laboratory?
To contact our laboratory is very easy. You can add our WeChat or our telephone number. We also have a website. You could obtain contact with us via that channel. You are welcome physically to
Thank you very much for that open invitation. We have a few more questions, all here for Anker Sørensen. The first one comes from China. Is it possible to grow rubber dandelion in greenhouse or via vertical farming?
Yes, actually it is. We are growing a lot in greenhouses during our process anyway, but we also set up an experiment to use hydroponics. And hydroponics is a system which can be translated also into vertical farming. And we tried to figure out, how long does it take before we can harvest some rubber, and how much rubber will we then get. And we even optimized growing conditions and lighting regimes for such a system. So yes, it's possible. It's not, the technical hurdles can be taken. So I think the question whether that's a feasible option would more be an economical one.
Okay, thanks. Another question from China. Is the inulina purification you mentioned required for the rubber extracting process, or is it just additional to make an extra profit, so to say?
Both. So you need to get rid of everything that is not rubber, so also the inulin, but you don't necessarily need to extract the inulin. For instance, in a specific fermentation process, we can just burn it, you might say, or turn it into methane. And but of course, we would like also to get economic profit from that part of the dandelion root, because it is actually a very interesting molecule in itself.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. Another question for you: why did Kijin choose to work on dandelion versus improving other vigorous rubber plants, such as the Congo rubber, which has been used previously?
That is a nice question, because I don't know what Congo rubber is. But in the beginning, we looked at two crops. One is called guayuli. It's a kind of a shrub that grows more in more arid regions, and dandelion. And based on the quality of the rubber, we decided, and also based on the ability to spread the area over larger areas in the world, we chose for dandelion. But Congo rubber, please send me an email, tell me what it is.
Okay, thanks. Another question from China about this rubber. Has dandelion been tested to grow on high salt soil? And what is production like in such environments? Do you know?
We haven't tested this on high salt soil, but we have done some tests in the hydroponic systems that I just mentioned before to look at the what happens if we increase the salt level a bit. That looks encouraging. So it's not harming in those systems, but of course we need to talk details, whether the levels we have tested in hydroponics would somehow mimic the situations in a field that is suffering from high salinity.
Okay. Another question from China on the output. You've discussed the high ambitions you had and how you plan to realize the output to make it profitable. What do you at this moment still need to realize that 750 kilograms per hectare target?
Yeah, so I mentioned that the current varieties have 10% rubber of their dry matter in the roots. And with a 3,000 kilo dry matter per hectare, that only gives us 300 kilos. So we definitely need to raise the kilos per hectare more. That can be done in two ways, of course, through breeding, by exploiting the vigor of the common dandelion, which is now in our program. It can also be done agronomically by increasing the number of plants per hectare, but then again you need to adapt the harvesting equipment. But so all of these things together, we are pretty confident that we will reach this goal by combining these things. And actually, I'm also very interested to see what the crop will do under subtropical and tropical conditions where, you know, the good conditions for growth do not stop. And so, for instance, also our non-flowering dandelion that needs the winter to start flowering. I'm very curious to see what that crop would do under such circumstances, and as a consequence, what the yield would be. But remember, you only can harvest the yield once you take them out. So it's a one-time thing. You have to choose when to harvest, and that's a yield you get.
Okay, thank you. One last question for you from China on the rubber dandelion. What is the special quality of this dandelion rubber? What applications are there?
So what we know from the initial analysis of the rubber quality is that what we call the molecular weight of the rubber molecule, so that has to do with how long they are, you might say. Rubber is a polymer. It's a molecule that is repeated many, many times. And the more times it's repeated, the higher the molecular weight. And that gives other qualities in processing of the rubber. And the second thing is that some of the additional compounds that are found in the roots, It has more to do with the proteins and the sugars, are beneficial for some applications of rubber, not for all, but for some. As you know, rubber is used for many, many different applications. But these, which would you normally would add some additives into the polymer matrix of the rubber, and now they're already in there.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you for your comprehensive answers. Then we will move on to the closing remarks. We have with us here in the studio in Wageningen today Marien Valstar from the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture, who will be making the closing remarks. Marien.
Thank you, Judith. I've been here with a lot of interest today. I learned a lot of new things, and what I especially learned today, there is already a very healthy exchange of ideas and possibilities that I see when you look at Keijing, when you look at Food Valley, and when you look at possibilities in China. So I'm very optimistic that this kind of interactivity together will lead to good results. And why do I say results? I think it's very important to do research, but in the end, to translate your research into real products for real people, that's also a big challenge. And I think when you combine, well, Dutch expertise and Chinese expertise, you can bring that a step further. So I'm very encouraged by this meeting and really see possibilities for the future. Now, I did prepare a small speech, so I will try to read that as well. And so first, I would like to thank Mr. Su, who's not here anymore in this building, but for the kind words he spoke, kind and wise words he spoke during the opening of the meeting. And it's my pleasure and honor to close now this online event. And even if it was online, I think it was a very valuable exchange of ideas and examples of the value and the real impact that innovation can bring. And I also see that innovations developed in China or innovations developed in Netherlands or in the future developed together have potentially global impact. For instance, if this rubber thing really works, it will have global impact. And I see more ideas and crops that will potentially impact the global market, which is very interesting. Now, Mr. Su already mentioned that the Food and Agricultural Organization in Rome, under the leadership of the Chinese Director General Qu Dongyu, by the way, he has done part of his studies here in Wageningen. But, well, this Food and Agricultural Organization has indicated that by 2050, our food production needs to be doubled. We have to work with a rapid population growth. Urbanization is a challenge. Growing wealth, that means people will start eating differently, and changes in consumption patterns. We all have to deal with that kind of development. And at the same time, our food systems, they are affected by more and more extreme weather events, as we associate it with climate change. We have to deal with land degradation and biodiversity losses. And for instance, again, like the dandelion, we expect more demand for crops that play an important role in a circular economy, that we can use instead of using fossil fuels, that we can use them from renewable sources such as crops. Not only all these challenges we have, we also, on top of that, want to grow our food and our ornamentals, etc., in a more sustainable way, using less pesticide and less fertilizers. So lots and lots of challenges. And we think, all of us here think, for all these reasons, it's crucial to improve the genetic potential of plants. That's the most powerful tool to look at all these challenges and to be able to produce enough food and safe food for the future. Now, today, we have already heard some examples of important developments in improving that genetic potential. And it's very important to promote these kinds of innovations. Innovations in itself is very interesting, but if you cannot put them to the market, well, they stay in shelves, etc. It's important to bring them to the market, and then it's important to protect your intellectual property. Improved varieties, they will add value to all parts of the value chain. Farmers will get access to new crops and to better performing varieties. and potentially improving their income and elevating them from poverty, but also consumers. They get a larger choice and higher quality products in the shop. As we have observed today, both China and the Netherlands, they play an active role in this field. And if you look at the statistics of UPOV, where you can claim plant variety protection for your new improved plant varieties, it will show that China and the Netherlands are number 1 and number 2 in the world when it's about developing new plant varieties. In 2019, so 2 years ago, in China, more than 7,000 new varieties were developed and registered. In the same year in the Netherlands, more than 3,000. And specifically looking at the Netherlands, plant breeders in the Netherlands, they are world market leaders for vegetables, potatoes and ornamentals. And of the top 10 vegetable breeding companies in the world, 7 have their most important research and development labs in the Netherlands. And like Arjan already has shown, some of those are also shareholders of Keegene. Here in the Netherlands, with our renowned Wageningen University and Research, where we are right now, our excellent education system, companies that provide high-tech services to breeders, companies such as Keegene, and our good inspection services for seed, we have very good opportunities for seed companies to do business. And like I think Mr. Su mentioned, the Netherlands could be a very good hub for Chinese seed companies doing business in Europe. So I see many opportunities why China and the Netherlands can work together in many different ways. And events like we had today, this online event, can lead to new projects and new win-win collaborations. Now, dear speakers and dear viewers, I think it's important to keep looking for these win-win opportunities. Together, we can work to improve food security and nutrition around the world. Hopefully next year, the pandemic will be over and it will be possible to come together in Hainan to extend this kind of collaboration and discussion we have together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that summarizes the event and the aim, the goal we have here today together very well. Thank you very much for those closing remarks, Marleen. That brings us to the end of this online Crop IB China pre-event. I also look forward to the event next year in Hainan if it can take place physically again. Thank you all in the Netherlands very much for your attention here today, and I wish you a good afternoon. And I'll finish by thanking the audience in China in Chinese. 谢谢各位在中国的朋友们今天参加我们的这个网上的活动。我也希望我们明年能去海南现场办理这么一个活动。我是东荷兰经济发展局的朱迪，很高兴今天能当你们的主持人。祝所有在中国的朋友们晚上好 ，Thank you。